Alright, let's get this over with. Hey guys, it's your boy Liam here, and welcome back to Top 5 Weekly, the dankest podcast on the internet, where we go over some of the dankest, littest, and otherwise dopest things that we can find every week in a list of Top 5. And this week we will be going over the Top 5 littest literature books of all time. Before we begin, I would like to remind our listeners that this podcast is made possible by our parent company, Franklin Media. Without you, Franklin, this podcast would have never been created, so we thank you. And without further ado, let's jump into number 5. So, coming in at number 5, we have the novel by local rapper Offset, The Lace Reader, which is currently the lowest book on my list because it doesn't have a frickin' SparkNotes page, which kind of ruins the entire point of the book. But from what I've gathered online, this book is fairly lit because an old lady does drown herself to death, which is pretty damn metal if you ask me. But it seems that the entire story is kind of ruined at the end when we find out that every character is a product of Dennis Rodman's imagination, and he wakes up from a dream and then it's over, I guess. At least that's what I've gathered from the internet forums. So for this book really to ever take off, there definitely needs to be a SparkNotes page, possibly a movie. That'd be even better. But otherwise, I would probably give this book 2 danks out of 5. There is an extra dank in there because of the drowning. But for the most part, I wasn't very impressed. So, coming in at number 4, we have a pretty impressive work of sci-fi by author Brenonia Barry, called Frankenstein, which, of course, is named after Kevin James' character in Hotel Transylvania 2. But essentially, this book covers this mad scientist who's never really named throughout the entire book, and his creation named Victor Frankenstein, and sort of the wacky antics the two get into as they try and sort of become the outsiders on the local police force and prove that their sort of wacky way of looking at things can also solve the case. So this sort of wacky humor and slapstick comedy really holds a nice place in my heart. And of course that heartwarming ending that I don't want to spoil for you guys makes the whole thing so worth it. For this book, I would probably give it 74 Bill Clintons out of 100. Not perfect, but very up there. Very good. Up next, we have a short story by German author Franz Kafka called Metamorphosis. Now, Metamorphosis follows the story of a young man by the name of Jerry Seinfeld, who wakes up one morning and realizes that he is a bee.
You like jazz?
So from there, he decides he's going to sue the human race on behalf of the bumblebees to try and win back honey for the bees. But in the end, they realize that humans and bees will actually accomplish much more when they work together. Now, of course, we know this story is highly allegorical, and in reality, it's more of a social awareness piece about the serious effects of climate change in the 21st century and its effects on bee populations all over the world. And that's really what Franz Kafka was going for here. And I think he did a good job because it did inspire the movie by Al Gore, An Inconvenient Truth, that would later go on and help change the world. Because of this book's effect on the globe, and more importantly, its effect on Al Gore, I'm going to give this book 1.5 man bear pigs out of 3. Again, it's not a perfect story. I would have liked more Jerry Seinfeld, but overall, it's definitely one of my favorites, and it had to be on the list. So, coming in at number 2, we have The Book Thief, which is a novel about Nazi Germany, and the humor in this project is supposed to be tasteful, so I'm not even going to go near this one. So, coming in at number 1 on our top 5 list of the Littest literature of all time, we have the incredibly famous play by the highly revered Mel Gibson, known as Hamlet. Now, Hamlet follows the story of a Scottish warrior from the 1300s who decides to go to war against the English and try and win his country back against the English soldiers. And he gathers this ragtag army of Scottish warriors. And together they take on the British and win back their nation for the Scottish people. Now, this book does happen to be one of my favorite of all time, which is why I have it here at number 1 on my list. I really can't see a single flaw in it. We have tons of Mel Gibson. We have tons of action. We have Scottish accents. We have anything you could really want in a novel. So because of all of these factors, I am going to give this the highest possible score of 2 golden CeeLo Greens out of 2. And I will officially claim this as the number 1 Littest literature book ever created.